Hello and welcome to Allianz Leagues Reloaded here in Air Sport and Facebook Live. After a week off, I'm delighted to welcome back my co-presenter, Anna.
Oh yeah, I had the feet up. I can assure you, it's very much the opposite.
You danced in with them feet earlier on.
It's good to be back. Now, as always, we want you to get involved with tonight's show and send us in some questions for the lads. So you can comment on Facebook under the live link, or you can tweet us at Airsport or use the hashtag Allianz Leagues Reloaded, because we'll be putting your questions to the lads in part 3. So I'm delighted to welcome back Michael Meehan for his second appearance in Allianz Leagues Reloaded. And we also have him ably assisted by former Kildare legend Johnny Doyle in studio. And we'll be hearing from the lads in a few minutes.
Two legends. Legends is right. Before we get stuck into our analysis with the lads on Dublin versus Kerry, here's a recap of what went on in front of the Air Sports cameras in Croke Park on Sunday.
Do the Dubs have revenge in mind, or can Kerry do it again here at Croke Park?
Playing the All-Ireland champions here is going to be a great test for the lads, and one that they're really looking forward to. These are the tests they want. This is what the training is about, playing against top players like this. So really looking forward to it, and we'll see how the lads get on.
They want to send out a message here today for these younger Kerry players. Dublin are a very, very settled side tactically, and what they'll want to do is hammer. They'll want to hammer this Kerry team, keep them down for as long as they can.
We're looking to lay down a performance marker, if I'm honest. You know, we've got 11 weeks to go to the championship, and you know, in some ways that's on the horizon. That's where the focus is at. And what a better way to test yourself against these new Kerry stars.
Nice delivery from Burns to Clifford. First chance for the boy wonder to show what he can do, and absolutely nothing wrong with that. Gainey just the way he wants it. He's got support inside from McCarthy, and Cluxton has to fly through the air to push it up and over. Gainey doesn't need to break stride and pops it up and over on the run, and Kerry ease 2 ahead.
Yeah, good start for Kerry. Each one of their men in the full forward line have got a score from play. That's exactly what they want. It's the strength of their team.
Kilkenny takes in and fires it over the bar. Clifford, and again the finish is clinical. Here's Cooper, who comes barreling through, and Johnny Cooper into the hill and over the bar. That's more like it from the All-Ireland champions. This is where Dublin are at their lethal best. In around the back to Shane Carthy. Murphy leaves his line. Scully scores the goal. The tide has most certainly turned. O'Shea Cluxton's left his goal. He's in no man's land as O'Shea blazes it wide. Dean Rock takes it, turns, and over it goes. Dublin in full flight.
Black card. He is being pulled to ground.
And it's a black card for the Dublin defender, John Small. Goal in towards Kilkenny, Murphy with the save, and Kilkenny rolls it in. And they have become, over the years, known for their big third quarter surges. It's when they go for broke. The referee blows the full-time whistle. Dublin, who have been too good for Kildare, Tyrone, Donegal and Mayo, now add Kerry to that list.
I think first half 1-8 and second half 1-9, and 2-15, probably 2-13 from play, so probably 8 or 9 different scores. So yeah, that was a pleasing bit.
Look, we're very disappointed with the second half in particular. But, you know, a chastening experience for us today, a lot of learning for all of us, for a lot of the players as well. But we just have to take it in the chin now and get ready to go again for next weekend.
Yeah, Jim Gavin, extremely happy after that win there. But Dublin are a fine-tuned tactical outfit, and one thing I suppose we wanted to look at in terms of their development and what they do is problem solve. And I think a lot of other teams are still trying to find their systems and their tactics in Division 1, whereas Dublin, as I mentioned, can just fine-tune. And if we can just keep that in mind, the problem solving. Kerry fast out of traps in this game here, and in particular David Clifford, great score, taking the ball over Keane O'Sullivan's head. And Kerry went into a 4-1 lead early on in that match, which would suggest that Dublin certainly had their problems. And again, if you can keep an eye on David Clifford in our second clip here, he's been marked by Keane O'Sullivan. Keane O'Sullivan only back into the side. This is David Clifford here, lovely pop ball inside. Clifford is actually stealing a march on Keane O'Sullivan, gets the ball and a lovely score. And again, this is in a period of Kerry dominance early on the match. As I mentioned, they went into a 4-1 lead, and that was after 9 minutes. Now, if we keep an eye on this little battle here, that's Johnny Cooper, and Johnny Cooper is marking one of the best forwards in the country, Paul Geaney. Look how tight he is there. Clifford is after stealing a march on Keane O'Sullivan twice and getting scores. So Dublin at half-time, up by 3 points. They identify where their problems are, and one problem would have been David Clifford. He had a great start in that match. What do Dublin do? They identify him, they stick Johnny Cooper on him. And if you just watch the next couple of clips, this is Johnny Cooper at his best. Johnny out in front, David Clifford in behind him. You can see Johnny there, acres of space in front. He's attacking that space. And with Johnny Cooper is in the most effective defensive position is what he would call it. Starting off the shoulder, front foot, identifies the danger, and he's gone and he wins that ball out in front. Difficult one for David Clifford. Obviously the caveat is this is at a period of time when Dublin are extremely dominant in the match in the second half. Same again here, forced ball inside. You can see Johnny is anticipating. And this is David Clifford in behind him there as well. Johnny after stealing a march. Now again, this isn't about Johnny Cooper. It's about Dublin problem solving. They identified where the problem was with Clifford. They said you have to hammer him, not let him get on ball. And I suppose with David, the key to it is, look at his body language. His hands are out. He's sort of saying, look, don't kick the ball in on top of me there. I'm surrounded by Dublin players. That's not going to work. And in the last clip again, I suppose what Johnny does best when a ball arrives inside, he's going to show David the end line. There's a little sort of channel of space. There you go. If you want to try and do it, you can take me on, but it's not going to happen. And again, look at the bodies back. Michael Darmacauli's cleaning up. Fenton is there as well. Dublin just get bodies back. So it's this, and you can see obviously Johnny's getting well acquainted with David Clifford there. I think he's his hand in his back pocket looking for a lend of a fiver maybe, but now this is what Dublin do, and I suppose it's the difference between Dublin and other teams. They can identify what's going wrong, go in at half-time, reassess, recalibrate and go again, and that was just one little simple idea of where it worked. Anna.
Great point. I'd say if Johnny was looking for fibres, there's most footballers looking for fibres during matches. Look, just speaking about the likes of Johnny Cooper, we'll talk Johnny on Johnny now for a second. For me, I think as well, the number of possessions that he's involved in and also the turnovers. I mean, one of his turnovers led to the goal. How valuable is the likes of Johnny Cooper to this Dublin setup?
He's a class act, and as Senan rightly says, he problem solves for you, and I suppose that's a trust that's built up over time. But and I played on Johnny, and you think you've lost him that split second. Or even if you're lucky enough to steal a march inside him, he's super recovery, and that's the one thing. And he doesn't look like a huge bit, but he's very strong upper body, and he's hard to shake off. The other point I would make and we looked at that last passage, the last clip, where obviously they were given instructions to watch David Clifford and say, but they all took that on board, not just Johnny, because as soon as he had him turned back, next thing the cavalry arrived and he was pinned again. So it was, while it was a man marking job, he wasn't left in isolation, and where Johnny maybe played that half a yard in front of him, in bygone days you weren't letting Donaghy sneak in behind you like that, so he read the situation very well, knew where he was in that situation.
Experience as well.
Yeah,
it's a leadership thing too.
It is, and in fairness, David Clifford in 2 years' time will be well able to read those situations, and I suppose the upper body strength is going to come with things like that as well.
Naturally, it takes time to progress. But staying with just Johnny for a minute, like if there's a 60-40 ball against, he's going to win it.
Yeah.
If there's a 70-30 against, he'll win more than he should of those kind of balls. That's the kind of player he is. He pounces in, he's aggressive, he's no regard for himself.
Yeah.
Great. So we saw also in that game, Keane O'Sullivan got injured and he looked very uncomfortable coming off the park. But I suppose the little caveat or the plus from Dublin's point of view is, let's say James McCarthy has to go back into the half-back line. He's been playing midfield. Michael Darragh-Macaulay has been holding his hand up as the guy that's going to step in and be Brian Fenton is the Rolls Royce of midfielders, but Michael Darragh-Macaulay is the guy surely he's going to step in there.
Yeah, like if you think about it, I mean, he's played all 5 games at this stage, and I think he's probably reproducing that form we would have seen from 2013 when he got Player of the Year. Like, Michael, would you see now, if that does arise, do you think that's that he'd be the person to slot in there beside Brian Fenton in the partnership midfield?
Absolutely, yeah. He has the knowledge of the systems of play. He's there for numerous years at this stage, and for me, I'd say he made a decision himself this year that he got himself ready to roll from the very, very beginning. A bit like what Bernard tried to do, and unfortunately didn't work out for him. But he's seizing every opportunity. He's playing in every league match. And for me, it's the tackles he gets in, it's the work rate he gets in all around the pitch, and it's very, very simple. You know, he'll rarely waste a possession and just moves the ball on, doesn't worry about scoring himself.
And that's the point I was going to make. What I really like about him is that honesty, and you can say it probably it goes into a lot of the Dublin players. You know, we talked last year about him, you know, having 2 all footballers of the year on the bench. You know, he looks to have that thing of, you know, where he would have maybe took shots and things like that. Now he's looking for forward. He's a worker, and we talked about Rolls Royce, and by no means, you know, Brian Fenton is the Rolls Royce, but beside every Rolls Royce, you need someone that's going to work hard.
Absolutely.
You know, and if you go back to successful teams, there's always someone there that'll do the real stylish stuff as Brian, but you need someone that's going to be there in the trenches, and he's relentless.
And
he's driving forward, he's driving back.
You know, you're dead right.
And I think that's where he knows what he's good at. He probably knows what he's not good at, and he's very effective.
Yeah, he was involved in 9 scores now for Dublin last year. Like you said, those pot shots that he might have been taking in the past, we didn't see them as often.
Yeah, he's for me, he goes looking for work, and that's what I love about him. You know, he's always busy.
He wants
around
contact.
the park.
And he's a big, strong man as well. How do you stop him?
He's dynamic. You stand beside him, John. He'd make 2 of you. You know, that's the truth of it there as well. You were avoiding the gym. I was going to say, but McGeady was there. You're avoiding that gym. You walk in with the towel around your neck
on the way out.
But you know, a big part of Dublin's play, I think, is that middle third. I think, and it's the surge that comes in that middle third. They hit Kerry for 1-6 after half-time, no reply. They just get the bit of daylight between themselves, and then they see out the third quarter. They see out the game on their own terms because of that. Look, we're just seeing a graphic of the third quarter score. 1-6, 1-1 against Mayo. Mayo didn't come out and play against Donegal. They hit 4 points, Tyrone 5, Kildare 2-6. It's a key part of the game for them, and I think it's something that oppositions are going to have to identify.
One of the things that strikes me though about that is Donegal were the only team to actually beat Dublin in the third quarter because they ran at them.
They did, yeah.
You know, I mean, Kerry didn't score against them, and like I think that was one of the things that we probably identified from Donegal.
I think from the last day, a little bit what happened before half time, where it got physical and the contest was laid down to Dublin, and just with the personnel around the pitch, Dublin were always going to win the fight essentially, because they had more mature players, more players who have years more spent in the gym than Kerry did.
Do you think that motivated Dublin?
I think it did. I think it fired up the Dublin lads. They went at half time and said, right, listen, let's go at these, and that just fed into what's already a strong period of their game, the third quarter. I think they just really wanted to go and make a point.
And you look at another sport, like the Aussies say that's the championship quarter. You know, that's when you do most damage. You know, the last, when you're heading for the line, you'll always find that extra bit. It's a bit like the last run. It's the second last run is the really important
push
one.
Yourself,
you push yourself because the momentum and you will bring it to the line. And I think they've identified. I suppose the challenge, and you talked about Mayo, maybe have identified that, and Donegal have. You know, teams will be looking to exploit that, and I suppose then, you know, the one strength that Dublin have is they're able to find a way. They'll always find a way, and I think that's what sets them apart.
Like 4-21 or something that third quarter. I mean, like that's phenomenal.
And Kenny said it, Kieran Kenny said in the interview afterwards, they reset at half time. I think a lot of teams get caught up on what the score is against Dublin, or 2 up or 2 down, whereas they reset, they recalibrate, and they problem solve. So it's like a different game to them, and like that's a mindset and a culture.
No, I definitely think.
And plus the opposition, I sometimes think, you know, you've often heard, you know, of teams that go to Old Trafford, they nearly bet before they started because they said, oh well, this is part of the script. And sometimes I think, you know, where the likes of Mayo, they're a long time underway, they don't buy into that, where other teams maybe just buy into that. Oh well, this is the way it's supposed to happen.
Well, let's flip it over now for a second, and let's talk about Kerry and I suppose the scores that they're conceding, especially goals. You'll see a graphic come up here now, and I think one of the things that strikes me is, I mean, they're conceding goals in every game. Like, I mean, just under 2 goals a game. 967 is a lot to concede.
It's heavy, and it's not like them. Like Johnny knows, and myself, and Senan, we've played against the Kerry backs of a certain area, and by Christ, you would not get in there and score.
You knew you were playing against them.
And it's just. But again, it comes to who they have available to them right now, and they're bringing through a new core group, and they're very, very young, and they're just physically, and the cuteness that comes with all of this, they're just not there. I've no doubt they'll accelerate to up to the levels of where they need to get to, but just this year, you know, they're finding it a struggle, and I think that, you know, just they need players back. There's a few lads, Griffin and these lads who are absent.
Yeah, Ty Morley, that
back.
little bit of steel.
Yeah.
And you know, we talked a little bit before off air about, you know, Paul Murphy's the elder statesman. He's probably 23 or 24.
Yeah,
you know,
I know what you mean.
He's only a young lad, like. Yeah. And they do miss that, like, you know, you see some of the defensive plays there. Like if Aidan O'Mahony was there, someone would be in trouble there, you know. And but that's what they brought, the Tomas O'Shea, you know. We've all played against them. And, you know,
show the scars.
Yeah, absolutely. They were ruthless. You know, they were real winners. And I think that's a big part of where they're at this stage in their development.
The goal chances, Dublin created goal chance. They conceded 9. I think in last year, this time last year, they'd only conceded 466. They've conceded 967 after 5 rounds this year. They're extremely porous, and we can see it from the clips. We know Dublin use a lot of latitude in their play. You know what I mean? They always have a guy out wide, but still, these are elementary errors in terms of defence. A lot of bodies back and Dublin are still creating the goal chances, and obviously an element of luck, lads, involved with this. But the other ones are really, really good chances as well.
If we saw that clip from earlier, that was taken from the full back line by David Byrne, the whole way through onto the deed. But he was allowed to sally up the field 100 yards, and no one touched him. They were just a little bit individual in their play.
Yeah, and I suppose there was the bit of luck, but you know, when things are going well, that luck sort of breaks. Which, like, how many times would we seen a full back come out? Goalkeeper was probably a little bit caught in two minds as well. Got a bit of a block onto it, and probably, you know, Kelly in the goals maybe has been in and out in poor form, so you've all that to take into consideration.
In all their clips, there's loads of Kerry players there. You know, there's loads of bodies there in all those clips. It's just that they're not. It's just not working for them yet. I feel that the unit isn't there, and it's going to take a little bit of time.
So just to be devil's advocate for a second, though, I mean, the last team to beat Dublin was Kerry in the league final. Is this what Eamon Morris might be? I mean, he's even focusing on the league. You mentioned the youth he's trying out. They were 3 points up at one stage in the first half. I mean, they were created the goal chance. Like you said, they had the players there. So, you know, I mean, is it as bad as people are saying?
No, he mightn't be too worried about it. You know, if he has a chance of beating Kerry once this year, he doesn't want it to be in March, I suppose. That's maybe one way of looking at it. And just with the players at his disposal, and he's down numbers at the minute, so it's probably he's playing a longer game.
And plus, he's a lot of experience. Like, you throw David Moore in there, you know, Anthony Mars, a strong guy around the middle, Donegal Walsh's engine up and down the field, all those little things, and 3 or 4 of them lads back in can gel the whole thing together. And I worry when everyone in Kerry says they're going bad.
I'm sure exactly. In the long grass.
And they're specialists.
Absolutely.
But it wasn't, for me, it wasn't all doom and gloom. I referenced that 4-1 quick start to get into, and for 20-25 minutes they put it up to Dublin, and there was some really, really fluid, very, very well constructed moves that ended up in really, really good scores, and we'll see a couple of them here coming from a kick-out. This is obviously, lads, this has been worked on the pitch, you know, ball out wide into space. They started narrow at the end of the wide. Really, really fluid moves, 1, 2, 3 and over the bar, and we're going to see one straight afterwards, very similar from the Munster final last year in the early stage. They were ball inside, man off the shoulder and over the bar. That's what Kerry are best at. Mark O'Shea was working us the weekend, and he said in second half, stop kicking the ball in because Dublin got bodies back. Something that works for them.
Absolutely, and there was some lovely examples early on, and there was great link-up play between O'Shea and David Clifford, and McCarthy got a good score. So, like, they have the ability to do that. You know, they really do. A couple of times, I think, on Saturday night, they just got caught with their heads down a little bit and they ran into traffic. You know, they just didn't. Maybe the options weren't there, but they just didn't find the spaces a little bit quicker, and just ran into bigger, stronger men, good tacklers in the Dublin defenders and midfielders.
They'll learn a lot
Michael
from it.
You, sorry, Anna.
I'm saying they'll learn a lot from it.
You raised that off air when we were chatting. 3 really good goal chances as well. Kerry created, you know, so it wasn't all doom and gloom.
And the Kerry, we associate Kerry with taking those chances. You know, we saw, I think it was O'Shea had a really good chance. if that was Cooper, it'd be rolled in by the, just try to blast it. And that's a bit of inexperience as well, because these guys are just our minor, and they're only learning their trade.
Yeah. Okay, great stuff, lads. Now, that wasn't the only live match on Air Sport last weekend. We were also up in Oma for the Ulster Derby of Tyrone and Donegal.
I think Tyrone, I suppose, a wee bit further down the line in terms of they bossed Ulster last year. Donegal were a long way off them. Donegal are playing catch up. Whether this team is just ready tonight to expose them enough with Pat McBurdy out, it's going to be difficult for them.
And the first meeting of these teams here at Healy Park in the league for 5 years is off and running. Slips it through to Bradley in full flight, clips the post, could have gone anywhere. This is Conor Myler. Finds Mark Bradley, who spins and shoots and scores. And it's been a really good start, a really positive start. It's Mark McHugh. Takes his time, steadies down. That looks good. Mark McHugh with a spectacular score. McNeilish winding up for it. It's going to be close.
Unbelievable point, but do you know what? I actually think he was putting a long ball into Kieran Thompson there.
Conor Myler pins his ears back. He's got one man up. Sean Patton, the goalkeeper's got a decision to make. Slotton has it. Goes by Patton, taken down. That is a penalty, surely. Peter Hart. This to put Tyrone in front. And he's missed it.
Not like him. Not like him at all. Not even to hit the target. Very disappointing.
This is Slotton. Goes low and it's in. It's a goal for Niall Slotton and Tyrone. And Tyrone lead, and that's the way it will be as they head down the tunnel at half-time.
Philosophies or styles aside, Donegal need to win this match, so they can't let Tyrone drive through them like they did in that first half.
Bradley's in around the back. Beautiful finish from Mark Bradley. He danced his way past a few defenders.
Just gives a lovely wee, probably call it a mulligan here in Tyrone. What a start for Tyrone.
And they really don't seem to have any answers when Tyrone attack down that central channel.
Exactly, straight in front of goals, edge of the D, another simple opportunity.
This is better now from Donegal. Owen Vaughan Gallagher, he's knifed his way through, and it's a goal for Oran McNeilish, and throws Donegal a lifeline. That was really nicely done by Tyrone. McShane got himself into position, and that just pushes Tyrone out of reach again. Peter Hart still full of running. Everybody backed off and Hart kept on going. Cut through, steady down and apply the gloss. Well, Mickey Hart said beforehand it will be a huge task to win this Northwest Derby. Tyrone have taken care of business. They've beaten Donegal. They're back to winning ways.
Yes, so for the few of you that mightn't actually know where everyone stands, I'm sure everybody knows where you stand at the moment, but we'll see here the table of Division 1. So you'll see Dublin there on top. And I suppose, look, Mayo, Kerry are down towards the end. They probably won't be too happy about that. And Kildare holding everybody up at the bottom. So, Johnny, when I look at Kildare and I can see them, they've lost 5 from 5 now at the moment. But, they have been close. They've only lost, was it to Man and Tyrone by a point, Donegal by 2. But I suppose at this level, the smallest of mistakes can cost you a place in a division.
Yeah, it is, and I suppose from the start of the year that would have been a goal of Kildare to get a couple of years in Division 2 or in Division 1. I think we were Bucky's favourite that before the ball was thrown in they were going to go back down. And for the team has changed. A lot of young lads coming in, so the whole that to do a Monaghan that have contested in playing it. That's the division everyone wants to play. That's where most of the learning occurs, and that's disappointment from a Kildare point of view. As you say, very close, but again, close and no cigar.
What strikes me as well, though, is that they have the second highest goal scoring after Dublin. They've 6 goals, and yet they haven't won any match.
No, and again, that's disappointing. Probably a little bit shy. I'm not sure the overall wide count, but it wouldn't be make good for good viewing. I suppose the most disappointment would have been last Sunday against Mayo. All right, Mayo in a position now, there's lots of their main guys coming back. For me, looking at the game with 50 minutes to go, there was an air of inevitability about it, and you just got the impression that lads maybe threw in the towel, and that worried me above all everything else, and that's a worry.
Well, Johnny, that might have come off the back of maybe the defeats, confidence might be low, but when I was looking at Kildare, it's one more comes to mind, it's wastefulness, and you have to be ruthless, and you hit freeze, Johnny, I know Kevin Feely plays in the middle of the park. There's a lot of attrition there, and then you're going hitting frees. Like he did miss a few against Monaghan, I think 3 frees, 1 laid on. Against Tyrone, he missed 1 laid on. He's a brilliant free taker, but every free has to count.
Absolutely, and as you're right to say, at that level, every free has to count. And the thing about for Kevin, I suppose he played an awful lot of soccer. He's late, you know, he didn't kick frees all the way under, and sometimes and you kicked him as well. Sometimes the hardest job is from the neck up.
Yeah.
You know, when all around you is maybe saying, "Is there another free?" You have to back yourself, and that probably it comes after years.
You
and
build
years
that
of
up
being
over
in
time.
You do, absolutely. And it's a lonely place. It's a great place. When it goes well. You know, when confidence is down, it's a lonely spot to be.
That sounds like Croke Park. It's a lonely place when you're not playing well. And a brilliant free taker, I must say, Johnny, as well. Kevin Feely, he has been phenomenal.
Yeah.
Michael, let's talk Galway. Undoubtedly, they have been the story of Division 1, 5 wins from 5. I'm just very surprised with the level of criticism that Galway are getting. Nearly people are writing them off in the Championship already. Look, maybe they have a crystal ball for the future. I'm loving the way they're played. They're attacking football. It might be one-dimensional, but it's been phenomenal. Surely they're in a great place.
Oh yeah, I'm sure everyone in Galway is thrilled with how the league has gone for them so far. I'm sure the players themselves are as well. And it's just no more than Johnny. The team that have just come up, you know, there would have been goals to kind of consolidate Division 1, but they've far exceeded that. But I think it's their style of play. There's a lot, there's a mixed thoughts out there, but like having been involved last year, there isn't a huge change to what we were trying to do last year. I think maybe the lead in to anticipating Division 1 this year, they've trained at a much higher level, and the matches on the Sundays have brought them up to that higher level, and they've managed to kind of get up there and sustain it. There's been a few tweaks and changes from what I can see. Obviously, I think the biggest thing is numbers get back. That was the same last year. It's just how quickly we're getting forward now, and key personnel are really leading that charge. And we have forwards who can score.
Yeah.
They're aggressive.
Well, for me, anyway, I know if you would have told me that Galway and Dublin would have been the only 2 undefeated teams in the league, I probably would have said, I don't know now if that could be the case. Like a lot of people seem to be saying, like you said, the criticism, but it'll be different come Championship. How do these players now ignore that and just focus on Championship?
I think, we were talking about it earlier, it's just the confidence that they're getting from this has to be huge. Everyone thrives on confidence, but there's a nice blend of youth and experience in the Galway squad, but certainly there's 3 lads, or 3 or 4 who are starting regulars who were under 21 last year. They're on top of the world now. They're probably nearly undefeated so far in their Galway careers now. And I really think it should really consolidate them and hopefully set them up for an attack on the summer.
And the one thing, the difference I see in this year and last year, and we talked about Kerry earlier on, where they had the numbers back. But sometimes you can get numbers back. But what are you actually doing? Where they remind me a little bit of Tyrone, the way. And Donegal, they hunt lads down in packs and just take the ball, and they have the players, the Shane Walshes, the Eamon Brannigans, the Damien Comers, just to go at a massive pace, and the attack. And it's very, very hard to defend against that when you have runners. And we would have criticised Donegal for going very, defensive. When they got the transition right, they were very unstoppable, and I think there's resemblance in the Galway
similarities, counter-attacking football.
Absolutely.
You can't hang your coat on it, Michael. It is very, very slick. We know the top teams can. They've no problem dismantling that sort of system there as well. So
that's the other side of it. Galway, I think, throughout the league, just their possession stats are very low in comparison to the opposition they're playing. So that's one worry. You need to have the ball to get the scores.
But you know what? They took Comer in for 1 laid on and Long taking the ball in on top. So it is there. They can change emphasis if they want. Sorry, lads. I know you could talk about that all day and night. That's it for part 1. After the break, we'll be chatting in studio about the evolution of the GA manager.
Is he from Leinster? Is he a dog? Forward. Dean Rock. Has he won All Ireland? Niall Scully. He's new to the panel. Stuck. What dub hasn't won All Ireland? It was Senan Anna. I wouldn't have got him.
Surely give that lad a chance. He wasn't even born when I was playing. Never mind. That's harsh.
But everybody should know you.
You got it straight away. I wouldn't even got myself staring if I was doing that. That's the truth of it. Anyway, look, for our discussion this week, I want to look at the evolution of the manager, because I know I know from what we do in terms of our analysis, it's all about systems and game plans and processes offensively and defensively. But the role of the manager in all this, I think, is he's becoming the sort of figurehead. I suppose when I look back in Dublin won the All-Ireland in '95, we didn't call it Pat O'Neill's Dublin winning team. It's Jim Gavin's Dublin team now. It's Eamon Fitzmaurice's Kerry team. It was Jim McGuinness's Donegal team. In our day, I think the manager was the chief bottle washer. He was the physio. He was the doctor. He was the strapper. He did everything, fellas. And John O'Mahony for you, Michael, Louise. Mick O'Dwyer for you as well. It's just evolved in a decade. Yeah.
The speed at which it has evolved since when I started playing in '03 to now, it's phenomenal what's changed. And you referenced John O'Mahony, and he was the physio. He strapped ankles before training, regular, and by golly, that ankle was not being twisted that night. But at the same time, Jono was nearly ahead of his time in how his attention to detail was very, very, very high, and he was big on diet and nutrition as much as he could at that time. And people might think, in watching today, might say, "Christ, that sounds ancient." But even back then, and he'd have a strength and conditioner in, so he was a bit of ahead of the time as well. But an awful lot has changed since 2003. Even.
They're nearly delegators now, though, aren't they? The current managers.
Yeah, they are, and nearly the bigger the team around him now, you're nearly, I suppose...
He's like a CEO, isn't he?
It is, yeah, absolutely. You mentioned Miko. I was lucky enough to come in on the Miko. I came in '99, and, even the whole process, you looked at your name in the local paper to come in for a trial. Yeah. First training session. I'll never forget, we got to a county final, beaten in a county final on the Sunday. And you were in to train and Mick O'Dwyer called you in. I was a young lad of 20 years of age. I was going in, but yourself, a couple of drinks after a county final, drowned the sorrows, and we came in and I did something like 40 laps, and you just didn't question anything, and was sweating and things out of the body, and then he said to me at the end of it, he said, welcome in, Johnny. I wasn't expecting to see you here. Now, he didn't tell me that at the start, but it was a test. This guy wants to be here. And, so he had his own way of doing things, and we call him very old school, but you knew anyone that was involved with Kildare at that time, he broke them down to build them, and he knew what he was left, because lads quit. He pushed them to a point that they quit, but he knew who he was left with was going to go places for him, and that's the way he did it.
What they're saying is, he was nearly
a psychologist
as well as everything else,
absolutely,
which is a difficult thing to do.
Yeah. And I suppose for Miko anyway, he could get away with other things that maybe other managers.
Track record.
Before he came to Kildare, he was the greatest manager ever. I remember one time we went to the Kerry, the Army boys were going to do the strength and conditioning. We lost the first 2 league matches and we were back running laps. They were gone. Best here. And that now is just it seems like years ago.
The big change kind of came through, I'd say, maybe 10 years ago. You would have started to notice, things kind of getting serious and a bit more emphasis on the strength and conditioner. They're regular, and you're getting your regular gym sessions away from your footballing session. And just the snowball effect then of who do I pull in, and I think everyone was looking around at what are Kilkenny doing at the time, what were Cork maybe doing, or what were Kerry doing, and kind of seeing, well, this is what they have, and this is who's working with them. So the kind of just everyone felt that we have to keep up with the Joneses.
And I think things became more structured as well. You talk about weight sort of first came in a little bit under Pádraig Nolan, then Johnny Crofton a little bit more, but you were given a weights programme and away lads. Some lads maybe did, some lads probably didn't.
Like yourself.
Like myself. When Kieran McGeeney came in, to weight session, there was someone there, you were in the gym, you had to be there, and everyone had to be trained at the one time in the one place. It was more structured.
The Northern teams, I remember the Northern teams were bursting out of jerseys in the naughty, so we were all hitting the gym. And by the time we bulked up, they were out of the gym.
Gone full circle.
Now, one of the things I suppose for me that I would be a little bit concerned about, because like you alluded to, it's about bringing people in now to do those jobs that manager would have all done automatically before. People management for me is still the ultimate role of a manager. Knowing what buttons to press to get the best out of your players. Now they nearly have people in, to
do that.
I suppose, Do you lose the connection then with the manager? Because ultimately, it's the manager has to drive the team to, and you have to want to play. Like you said, you die for Miko.
He does, but he's probably just, I'd say the whole thought process now is that the manager just creates an environment for the players to drive it themselves. And I think that's kind of how it's been set up. And I'd imagine, of course there's a relationship with the manager, but it's probably not the relationship that Miko held with G or John O'Mahony with the Galway lads in '98 or '01. And one man who springs to mind is Joe Kernan. He came up to Galway for a year. It was it 2010, and he had won the All-Ireland back in '02. But I know what he was doing in '02. nobody else was doing. He had his team around him at that stage. The strength and conditioning, the psychology, the nutrition, and all of that. And he was ahead of his time. And his attention to detail was phenomenal in terms of like walking through set plays for kickouts and for sideline balls and attacking frees and things like that. And that obviously it was a real eye opener for us. And obviously it was something that had really brought Armagh on and got them where they needed to get to in 02.
Yeah, and I think every manager brings his own style as well. And probably, especially if it's an ex-player that will relate to the journey they've had. Like, I know when Geezer came in with us, it was, let's get rid of excuses here, lads, and it's back here to ye, and would have put the big pressure on.
What do you mean, get rid of excuses?
Well, the likes of, the gym was a problem, and he said, right, I remember him writing all these excuses up on the board, maybe the second or third night in, and he says, right, we need to get money, and we all went away and did a boxing night, raised a few bob and bought our own weights. So we were self-sufficient. So let's get rid of the excuses here, lads.
Good
now.
idea,
But the big thing for Kieran, he put as much. I remember one night after training, myself and Dermot early talking, and Dermot was, he's putting on, we're doing our best. But his thing was, you get your main man to drive it, and the rest will follow. And that was big. And he put a lot of emphasis on his leader, his oldest players in the team, to bring the rest, to set the crossbar high, and the rest to come with it.
Yeah, that's good management. It's good management, I suppose. Jim Gavin is maybe doing that in to a different extent, whereby he has multiple players at his disposal. So they're kind of putting the pressure on each other for him. He doesn't have to maybe bring that scenario to too many lead players because there's just such competition there.
But what about then an instance, because like you said, running 40 laps, you never questioned the manager years ago, whereas now, particularly inter-county managers, you often see it that if things aren't going well, that this whole idea of the player power and them coming out saying we want the manager out. Does that happen more often now than what it did in the past, even though structures are more in place, even though there's more professionalism?
Yeah, I suppose again it depends. I think from a management point of view, and you got to believe in your manager, number one. And I think that's regardless, and even when there's something maybe a little bit off centre comes in, you have that belief in them. Is the big thing for me. The players, it's a people's game, and you rightly said, and it's knowing what buttons to press.
Yeah.
If a guy comes in and even maybe your main guy, he's going through a bit of form, but he's showing that honesty. If there's a guy coming in and he thinks he's better than everyone else, we've seen it in the past, without mentioning any, when Pat Gilroy came in, probably cleaned out the thing a little bit, got rid of a few lads that maybe thought they were a little bit above the station, and built, as you said, built that culture, built that environment. That takes time, and I think the big thing for a manager, any manager can, he'll expect a little bit of a bounce the first year. Second year, if he can consolidate, and by the year 3, if there's no results coming,
Jim McGuinness,
it's results-based business.
Jim McGuinness talked about it. He kind of had the Olympic cycle, and he had his 4-year plan. I think they won the All Ireland in year 3, but he was kind of saying that that's the whole process of coming in, building a team, and then putting layers on top of it. And he was able to get there inside that 3-year cycle, and the players totally bought into what he was trying to do. But there probably is a cycle. I think managers, bar the few real exceptions, there's a management group, they have a cycle, they run their course over maybe 3, 4, 5 years, I don't know, where there's a few classic exceptions to that, Mickey Hart, Brian Cody and Jim Gavin, I suppose, at this stage. But
I think what we're saying, Michael, as well, Jim can manage egos. There has to be a lot of egos, and the difficulty for a manager is, winning an All-Ireland, fellas can go off the rails, trying to keep them in check, trying to keep hunger to ravenous levels.
I think if we're looking for a really good example of that is the Donegal. I mean, they would have had a tradition, or once a tradition, but a reputation, we'd say, pre-Jim McGuinness of, maybe staying too long on a Saturday night and things like this, where he came in, everyone started at the same level, but the rules were there, everybody knew, and we've seen Kevin Cassidy suffer for that. And that's a big statement. Like, Kevin Cassidy at that stage might have been the difference in winning an All-Ireland and not. Now,
you got to win and score against you.
He was a big player for him, and to have I suppose, the bravery to do that. That I have a core set of principles here. This group has a core set of principles, and I think the good managers do that.
It sends out a message.
It sends but Cody did it. There's a ruthless streak there.
There has to be.
There has to be.
We've 2 managers here.
I'm telling you, you heard it.
One of the 2 days is going to be the first manager to wear a suit. Short time the sideline.
Absolutely, I can see it.
John Doyle is a model for it.
Looking very sharp in fairness, Johnny, but that's fascinating.
A suit and a pair of shorts.
Remember, we want you to get in touch because we're going to be putting your questions to Michael and Johnny in the next part. So you can comment on the Facebook live stream or get us on Twitter @AirSport, #Allianz Leagues Reloaded. We'll be back shortly.
So is it a hurler? Is he from Munster? He's from Limerick. Is he a back? Forward? Is he Key Lynch?
Well, that was no problem for Limerick's Aaron Gillan. I wonder, did he know the answer already? He seemed very relaxed.
That was
Didn't he
quick.
doing it? Yeah. Now it's time to get stuck into our social media section. So this is where you put your questions to the guys. If we have a look at a few of the questions, Michael, I'll get you to be the first to choose.
Okay.
So we'll have a look here now and you can take your pick. Now, what's jumping out at you?
Galway plan. We'll see what Anya says on the Galway plan.
Right, so Anya, you have your moment. Let's see what comes up. So has anything surprised you about how Galway have approached the league this year?
No, I think they would have prepared to hit the ground running from an early stage, just knowing the step up that they were going to have to reach. And that was apparent in their early performances. You know, they were flying fit and had more work done than maybe the likes of Mayo at that stage, which is natural given Mayo going on to the All-Ireland final last year. So their plan would have been to kind of secure Division 1 status as early as they could, and they ticked that off, you know, pretty easily. And in terms of that now, I suppose maybe they might kind of look, it's very likely that they'll be playing Dublin again in the league final. So whether they look at this weekend's fixture a little differently, I'd hope they wouldn't. I think they're as well to kind of to keep going, to keep doing what they're doing.
It's been working for them.
Yeah. And
last year they played Kildare in the last round of the league. What happened there? And they were
It
also going to play.
It was a dead rubber.
Yeah, it was a dead rubber. And Kildare sent out a second string team, which probably didn't work well, you know. And it didn't settle well. It didn't sit well with a lot of Kildare folk as well, because you know our record against Galway isn't great, and any chance you know we didn't
pushing on,
go
absolutely.
you know, and it didn't work in our favour in the league final then either.
Yeah,
Galway won the round 7.
Yeah. And they won, beat us in the league final.
Yes, yeah. It worked in Galway's favour last year, so I'd say that'll be in the back of their minds when they're planning the final 3 games of the league. But I suppose they have a quick turnaround to Mayo Connacht Championship is 13th of May, which isn't too far away at all.
So if it ain't broken, don't fix it.
Exactly.
Keep going.
He might try 1 or 2 new players, you know, just or possibly maybe looking at the Kildare game, especially. You know, a lot of lads have played. You know, they've a core group have played a lot of league football, so he might start to rest a few at that stage.
Good stuff, Michael. Great point, Johnny. You can have a little look here now.
It's your
no
turn
pressure,
to choose.
but
No pressure, yeah.
No pressure.
I go with Stephen. I might learn a bit about Kildare mindset myself. So we'll see what the
Kildare mindset. Okay. How important is it in terms of psychology, the psychological championship preparation for Kildare to avoid the wooden spoon in the league? How important it is? It's a good question.
Yeah, good question. Yeah, and I suppose it is. Look at, you know, winning is a good habit to get in, and you know, we saw it in some of the matches we talked about, losing by a pint. You know, go back through 70 minutes of football, all the simple mistakes that were made, whether didn't kick on and get a score or allow the opposition to score, and it's a mindset. And
it is.
You know, we would have maybe, including when I played myself. You know, we talked about the Donegal game, falling. You know, brilliant game, brilliant contact, but fell on the wrong side of the line, and that's a mindset. You know, you have two games now. Look at it. Mathematically, I think it is still possible for them to remain, but you know, it's a tough one. Are they going to get a backlash in Kerry next weekend, and then going to Galway? You'd be hoping maybe Galway will return the favour. You know, that we did last year.
There's a nice little touch there.
That was nicely got in, wasn't it? That was very nice.
I like your style.
Very subtle.
I don't think there's much chance of that happening, but but it is. You know, they'll use these 2 games to see to get a bit of consistency, maybe find out a little bit about players, maybe throw in, you know, we've had the core group as much like Galway, you know, maybe 1 or 2 of them need to stand back now because performance haven't been where they would like them, and maybe throw in a lad. Now, there's always the good saying at home, you know, you won't learn to swim standing at the edge of the sea, you know, you have to jump in, and some of these young lads deserve a chance.
Yeah.
So I would love to continue. Unfortunately, what we
Sorry,
do,
Michael,
we're going to have to
to
turn our attention to the small ball now for a second. And I'm delighted to say that we have Clare's 2-time All-Ireland winner, Jamesy O'Connor, on the line. Jamesy, we were chatting there, so we were leaving you on the line. How are you doing?
Not too bad, Anna.
Well, it won't keep you long now because I know you're just after coming in from training. So I suppose really to get stuck into it, what did you make of the weekend's fixture just gone?
I thought really, you know, the Limerick win was massive, Anna. You know, to go up to Salt Hill, you know, without the Piercy players, and John Kiley, you know, hasn't mentioned them all year. It's been about who they have available. it was really, really impressive. 8 points down, having nearly shot themselves in the foot with it. Just 12 first half wides, but they dug in what was a physical game at times, and the lift to morale, I don't think you can put a value on it for Limerick in terms of doing it against the All-Ireland champions in their own backyard when the odds at half-time appear to be stacked against them. So that to me was a standout performance of the weekend, and if anything, the standout performance of the league so far.
And I suppose looking ahead as well, Limerick and Clare now this weekend, but also there's a few other interesting fixtures. You have Wexford and Galway, of course, in Wexford Park, who are tough to beat in Wexford Park. What are you most looking forward to this weekend?
Yeah, well, I think the two stand-up fixtures are obviously the local Clare-Limerick derby, because Clare have lost 2 now, and momentum going probably in the wrong direction. And I think they need to stop that that negative trend. And the Gaelic grounds, there'll be a big crowd. Bank holiday weekend, so that's obviously a big fixture. But the bigger one is arguably in Wexford Park, because Galway rode the momentum from the league and carried that form into the Leinster Championship last year. And okay, they lost on Sunday. They still have players to come back. Dahi Burke, Joe Canning didn't start on Sunday. David Burke made his reappearance. But they'll be conscious of not wanting to give Davy or the Wexford players any confidence booster heading into the championship. So I think that's one where Wexford will be up for it. It's not an easy place to go to and get a result. So that's the game of the weekend, with Clare and Limerick probably a close second. Yeah, absolutely. Some mouth-watering fixtures there. Thanks very much for taking the time, James. We'll talk to you again soon. No problem, Emma. Good to talk to you. Bye. I know, it's great to hear James' voice, isn't it? Quarter-finals of the league, it's a serious... He's the school teacher I want to be, No days. No days. Lads, we'll have after all a great chat. We've no time to lead you into this slowly. So we're going straight at it. It's the Who Am I challenge, fellas. Yeah, so we're going to dim the lights. Oh, look at that. Red, of course, just for you. Yeah, all right. Go. From Leinster? No. Connacht? No. Munster? Yes. Cork? Yes. Football? Yes. Forward? Yes. Still playing? Midfielder? Yes. Still playing? No. Right. Derek Kavanagh? 90s? No. Forward and midfielder? Clue. He's a big man. Big unit. Carl O'Neill. Well done. Yeah. Just in the nick of time. Crowd pleasers we are. It was a bit of jeopardy there. You left it right till the end. That was not easy, because we said we were putting Michael Meehan under pressure on purpose, because he got the last one. I think it was 5 seconds. 5 seconds. So Johnny Doyle, well done. Very impressed. Great teamwork there, guys. Yeah, okay, brilliant, lads. Unfortunately, now that's it for the final episode of Allianz Leagues Reloaded this year. We hope you've enjoyed our coverage over the past few weeks. We've certainly had a blast. We've Senan Anna. My thanks to Michael and Johnny for joining us tonight. And we didn't damage the studio yet anyway, so hopefully we'll be back again. Thanks to all of you for watching. So for all of us, the Air Sport team, from Senan and myself, goodbye for now.